When declaring a path in PHP, there are two considerations that must be made. First, is the path being used within a purely PHP way? Second, is the path being used in a non-PHP way? Why is this important? Because it will determine the kind of path to be used and how the path must be built. The obvious question is, what path are we talking about here? And the answer is a description that the server or browser will follow to find an external resource. Boy, that's vague. Yes it is, but it is accurate. In this short video, I will demonstrate examples of non-PHP uses of paths for HTML and HTTP. I will also demonstrate PHP uses of paths. Let's get started. Looking at the screen, you will see that I am working inside of a folder named Paths, and I have two files. One file is where my paths reside, and the second file, Target, is what I'm trying to access. I've set it up this way to keep it simple. In code, you may need to tell the server to redirect from your current location or scope to a different location. PHP has a header function, but a quick peek at the documentation shows that while the header function is PHP, what it does is create and send a raw HTTP header. So in reality, its use is not PHP, it is HTTP. This means that we can use two different types of paths, relative or root-based. All right, I admit, I'm fudging. You could also use an absolute path with a full protocol involved, such as http:// some site leading to some page. But don't, unless you are really wanting to leave your site and go somewhere else on the internet. All right, in the first example, you will see a root-based path being used. The / at the beginning tells the server to start at the site root. In my case, the root is the htdocs folder, but is represented by the folder named source files in my NetBeans IDE. When run, you will see that we have been redirected to the new page and have left the previous index page behind, as illustrated in the address bar of the browser. Returning to the code, I will change to the relative path example. Both files reside in the same folder, and the relative path is just a declaration of the other file's name. As before, we are redirecting to the new location, and the address bar shows that that's happening. The next example is a little different. I am writing basic HTML, in this case a link, but the HTML code is a string, and I'm using a PHP echo function to write the HTML to the browser window. Because PHP is processed on the server and never appears in the browser, only the HTML is sent to the browser. The link points back to the website, and a root-based path is used to point to the target. When clicked, the target file is requested from the server and delivered to the browser. The URL reflects the path to the file. In all of these examples, the path is for HTTP or HTML. As a result, root-based or relative paths are acceptable and operational. Now let's turn our attention to PHP use of paths. When using PHP paths, the path must be a relative path or fully qualified path from the base of the server to the resource. Root-based paths will not work. In our first example, we are using the include function to not redirect to another page. Rather, we are reaching out and bringing the code and functionality of the other page into our current location. The path is a relative path. When the code is run, it appears as if we jumped to the target file. But if you look at the URL, you will see that the browser remains in the index file. We have not jumped at all. In our second example, we also use the include function, but this time using a root-based path. When run, you will see that a warning is displayed indicating that the file does not exist in the path provided. This is because PHP doesn't understand the root-based path. In our third example, we changed the path to be a fully qualified path using the server superglobal to tell PHP where on the server the website folder is located, and then add the rest of the path to the file. As before, you will see that the contents of the file have been included and sent to the browser, but the web URL has not changed. In summary, two guidelines to remember about paths in PHP code. 1. When using HTML or HTTP, relative or root-based paths are preferred unless leaving the website, in which case an absolute path using a protocol is appropriate. 2. When using a PHP function, relative or fully qualified paths must be used. Don't forget these two simple guidelines, and paths will not be an issue as you develop in PHP.